So if you're listening to this on the day of, it is January 22nd, 2024, which is the 18th anniversary of Kobe Bryant's 81-point game. I, one, have never felt is so old in my life to think, because I remember like it was yesterday. But got Frankie with me. I'm gonna ask you first, Frankie. Like, were you watching that game? Chances are you weren't. But when did you find out Kobe dropped 81, and what was your reaction to it?
So I was in Orlando. I wasn't watching the game. I was in Orlando celebrating my birthday. Um, we were. I was with my cousin, who is her ex husband now, but at the time, humongous Kobe fan,
Mhm.
and we were talking about Heat and Lakers all the time, and Kobe and Dwayne. And I check on my phone real quick, 15, and I got like an alert or something. I don't remember. This was a long time ago, so an alert for back then was crazy. But somebody, I'm pretty sure it was like a text that says, "Yo, check what Kobe's doing." And I pulled up. I waited 20 minutes to get on the phone, of course, because that's how the internet was back then. But I saw that it was like Kobe was at like 60 or 70, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And I told and we were trying to get to a TV, like a bar or something, to see where the game was. But by the time we got to the hotel, we turned on ESPN and we saw what Kobe had done, and we were watching the highlights over and over and over again because that shit was crazy.
So the thing about that, to give a little context to the people who may not know or may not have a horse in that race, Kobe versus Dwayne Wade was a real thing in Miami, and we all knew in the back of our minds Kobe was better, but it was like no, we had to fight tooth and nail to the Kobe fans no matter what. We had to stick with our guy, and so I relate to that story heavily from Frankie. But for me personally, I wasn't gonna watch that game. One, it was a local game, and two, neither the Lakers or Raptors were good. And so I woke up the next morning for school, and my dad called me and my brother into his room. And the thing you got to understand about my dad is he likes basketball, but the Dolphins went undefeated when my dad was 12 years old.
Mm.
And so basketball, like he likes it, but it's not his sport. You can talk. I have never gotten in my dad's car in my life and heard music. It was all Miami Dolphins sports talk radio. He is Miami Dolphins to the core. So for him to care about something with basketball, it has to be a little serious. And so he called me and my brother into his room and was like, "Y'all see what Kobe did?" He was like, "Nah." He just turned the computer to us because I was back, like you sit on the laptop all day. It was before like smartphones really. And the headline just said 81 exclamation point. I was like half sleeping. I was like, I ain't saying nothing. I was like, man, this ain't real. Come on. But once I got to school and woke up in like third period, because I've never been a morning person, it really clicked for me. And it was like, well, a month before that, Kobe had scored 62 and three quarters against Dallas.
Yeah.
So that was when it really registered to me. And then NBA TV used to show the game all the time, and I watched it every time. And I was kind of blown away by it because, one, he didn't start off strong that game. And the main thing is, you could tell by watching that game, he had no idea how much he had at any point in the game.
Mm.
He was just so locked in on trying to win because the Raptors beating them the way they were in the first half was really bothering them because the Raptors were so bad that season. They had no business, even though the Lakers were not great either. You knew Kobe wasn't going to just let that happen. And so actually watching the highlights and seeing how automatic he was. And then me and my friends, we got to the computer in the back of the class. We supposed to be doing math or something. It doesn't matter. We watching Kobe over and over again. Even as Dwayne Wade fans who will argue you down about, Dwayne Wade's better this, better that. Kobe just did so much stuff throughout his career to where it was just like, you cannot deny the greatness that's going on here.
Yeah, 100%. And to put it into perspective, I just wanted to pull up a couple stats here to pull up how scoring was back in the day for people who don't realize the pace of play, how different it was. In 2003, and it was it 04 or 05? I forgot what year.
81 was 06.
06? Okay. So I'm gonna pull up some stats. Here's some crazy stats for you guys. So right now, the Indiana Pacers average 125 points per game, first in the league. That's one of the most historic numbers in league history. Back then, the Phoenix Suns were averaging 108, and that was crazy for basketball. Crazy for basketball back then. You know where that would rank? Want to guess where that would rank?
It sounds like, honestly, looking at games today, probably dead last.
Close. It would be third. it would be fourth, right above the Hornets of today. That's how bad how low scoring. And to be fair, the Suns were the outlier because they were averaging 6 more points than the second place team, the Sonics. The Sonics were more around the top of the league like that. If the Sonics would have been dead last by 5 points to the Blazers this year. Like, that's how scoring was so different. The three pointers weren't a thing. Like for example, the Suns led the league in scoring. They shot 25, averaged 25 3 attempts a game. That would be dead last in the NBA right now. It's such a different game. So 81 in a low possession, cramped spacing era that the 2000s was. Like, you know, this was also one of the first years that that hand checking was no longer a thing. So, you know, this is where you saw the explosion of like Steve Nash and all the guards, all the point guards becoming different kind of players and being more perimeter based. So that, you know, a lot of people will point that out as well, but you can't fucking disrespect. 81 is still 81 in any climate, any era. That's still fucking crazy.
And I think the only other Laker that game who had a decent game was Smush Parker, which says a lot. I think Smush Parker had like 15 or something like that. But that goes to show like the era. And to give Kobe credit also, those were the years between Shaq and Powell to where he was really on his own just trying to get it done. And to be able to do that, seeing triple and quadruple teams, like we see the famous pictures of him shooting over 4 people, but he was making a lot of those shots.
Yeah.
And just to go back to the game a month before that against the Mavericks, where he had 62 and 3/4, Phil Jackson, Phil Jackson wasn't the coach then.
I think was it Rudy?
Rudy Tomjanovich, I believe so.
Yeah.
He wanted to give Kobe the opportunity because the game was out of hand to go in and get 70, I want to say, in the fourth quarter. And Kobe denied it and was like, nah, I'll get it another time. And then 1 month and 1 day later, he is 81.
Oh man. Like, so I got the box score here.
Yeah.
So 81 points, 28 of 46 from the field, 7 of 13 from 3, which makes it crazier to me that it was only 7 threes.
Yeah.
Like, that's nuts. 18 of 20 from the line. Okay, he got a lot of his points from there. Still found a way to get 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, only 3 turnovers for that high usage of a game. And you mentioned Smush. Yeah, Smush had 13 points. Yeah. Chris Mim, I would have never guessed he was the 3rd leading scorer of this game. 12 points for Chris Mim. Lamar Odom, Kwame Brown. They started Kwame Brown and Chris Mim this game. This is how you know this was a different era of basketball.
And Kobe was getting to the line that game, which means he was getting to the basket that game.
Yes.
And like that's man, that era was I don't want to say bad. I grew up on that era, but it just kind of made no sense.
It really did.
That era made no sense. And
it was really like the transition era.
Yeah.
Because it was you know, I just mentioned the hand checking and stuff. That's when you started to see it you know, a changing of the guard and how basketball started to be played, and that eventually led to the evolution of the Steph Curry and stuff. We'll get more into that some other time, but this specific era, like you said, I can't dismiss it fully because we grew up on this era and there's a lot to love on it. But when people compare stars of today to stars of that era, it's a completely different game.
Yeah, man, regardless of the fact, like 81 points without even being conscious of the fact you're going for 81 and just trying to win a game, like we will never see anything like that again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 13 of Playoff Foul. I'm Kenny. No Lou today, but I do have Frankie with me. Frankie, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Ready to talk Mr. Bean Bryant.
Yeah, so once a month we're gonna be paying homage to a player and to a team because honestly, somebody asked us after the LeBron episode if we could do more of them, and I was like, "That's a great idea." And I had other ideas to honor players from the past, but this just makes sense. So this month's player, obviously, with it being the 18th anniversary of Kobe's 81-point game, Kobe Bryant. Now, being honest, as I alluded to earlier in the episode, and we don't like lying here. We're just going to be honest here. We're Heat fans, and at the time, the Heat and Lakers were a serious rivalry. And so, unfortunately, I say now, and I started to really love Kobe again after he retired. But at the time, there wasn't as much appreciation for him from me as a Heat fan and somebody who just rolled for Dwayne Wade all day. But once he retired, I really started to understand. I actually loved this dude his whole career. And so this is gonna be a pretty easy episode for me, man.
Yeah, man, it's very different for me. No, I'm just kidding. I was more very much a Dwayne Wade fan. He's the one who got me into basketball and that era. You know, I appreciated Kobe. Like I wasn't gonna lie. That Tracy McGrady was my favorite player before like him and Dwayne were like neck and neck until the 05 season, and Dwayne took it from me.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like partially like trying to get into the Tracy's just as good as Kobe thing, and I was like very quickly like just watching them play and just seeing the team success of how Kobe was able to lift teams and Tracy could never get there. You know, Ray Allen was another one of my favorites, and guards of that era, that Hall of Fame players as well in their own right. We'll hopefully talk about them, give them their own episodes as well. But yeah, Kobe, you couldn't deny Kobe's greatness and how special one of the most influential basketball players of all time,
especially on this era. And I'm glad you mentioned his influence because he came into the NBA out of high school the year after Kevin Garnett broke that barrier. And so what happened is it was still a lot of questions about can perimeter players do it, because before Kevin Garnett, it was, I believe, Spencer Haywood, it was Moses Malone, it was Daryl Dawkins, it was bigs to where like, all right, they can at least take it physically in the NBA, and maybe they can like learn the skills later on. And KG came in 6'11" out of high school, freak athlete with handles. You're able to take the chance on that.
Right.
Kobe comes in the next year. He's 6'5" at the time. He grew an inch in the NBA. 17 years old, very skinny. He had a lot of upside, a lot of athleticism, but there were reasons to kind of question whether at the time, right? And one thing I do also want to bring up is the draft night, not draft night, but right after the draft trade, to where Jerry West took the gamble and he traded a veteran center in his 7th year in Vlade Divac, who, regardless of what people may believe or don't recognize, was at the time, he was a unicorn. Those European players, those European bigs, Nikola Jokic isn't the first one. There's a long lineage of European bigs who can really play, make, and pass the ball. Started with Arvydas Sabonis. Vlade Divac was next. Tony Kukoc was kind of a point forward, but he was 6'10", being able to play, make, and pass and all that. And Vlade, he came in towards the end of Magic's career, and to share playmaking responsibility here and there with Magic Johnson kind of tells him stuff. And then Magic retires, and Vlade's still there, and he's a double-double. He'll get you a double-double. I won't say double-double machine. He did average a double-double at least 1 year.
Twice.
And he was close to it aside from that most times. So,
twice in LA. Twice in
LA.
You're right. He was a consistent like 12-8, 12-9 guy.
I think it was like 16-10 1 year or something like that.
Yeah, 16-10. I'm looking at it right now.
But in the 90s, that's real good in the 90s.
Yeah, with those slow possessions, and he was also a high level passer for those low possessions. His best year was in 94-95, 16, 10, 4 assists, 1.4 steals, 2.2 blocks.
Yeah, so
good player.
Yeah, so making that trade at the time was actually a much bigger risk than we would ever say now in hindsight, because Kobe became who he became. Kobe at the time was you don't take Brandy to prom if you're a nobody at that time. Like Moesha's out the whole 9 yards. Like Kobe was like a phenom at the time, and so he comes into the NBA. He gets traded to the Lakers. His teammates don't really like him that much for the most part. Aside from Byron, I think Byron Scott took him under the wing, and then everybody else was just kind of want to stay away from him because he had this confidence that he could be the best, and he was the best. And he was 17 years old, and he was in practices busting ass. Like so that you couldn't deny his game, but he came into a situation where it was a coach who didn't play young guys. They didn't have Phil Jackson yet. It was a coach who didn't play young guys, and he was behind Eddie Jones, who is another player who kind of gets forgotten about. But Eddie Jones came into the NBA as one of the best defenders in the league, off rip. Two-way player, just could shoot, do everything. He was a multiple-time All-Star. Actually, his last All-Star game was in LA with Kobe. And so I think just there's a lot of stuff in the beginning of Kobe's career that kind of gets forgotten about. So Kobe comes out his rookie year, he averaged like 7 points a game. Nothing too special. The next year is sort of the same stuff. The third year, it's like, all right, you know what? We can't deny this guy anymore. we can't do it. So Eddie Jones, we love you, but he needs these minutes.
Yeah.
And in 98, 99, that's when they make the trade, and Kobe plays 50 games and he averages 19.9 points per game. And you start to really see Kobe becoming Kobe. The next year, they end up with Phil Jackson. That's the Shaq MVP year, and then it's him and Shaq. Like, and we know, like, you can make the Jordan and Pippen debate, and I won't argue with you because Jordan and Pippen were incredible. But when we were growing up, it was Shaq and Kobe.
Yeah.
Shaq and Kobe, no question. Which is why I don't really understand like some of the conversations now about this player didn't do this without that one and that. Like Shaq and Kobe were, even though they didn't like each other for the most part, completely unstoppable. I absolutely hated when my cousin would pick the Lakers on NBA Street Volume 2. It was just, man, you have a presence like Shaq down low, and you have Kobe, who, as much as he kind of gets called a ball hog, he kind of wasn't in that era. He just wanted to win. So he did take a lot of shots, yes, but he knew he needed to get Shaq involved. And they run off 3 straight championships.
And you go back to Shaq, like Shaq being one of the most dominant forces we've ever seen, like of any era, and having that option. Oh, I can also dish it out, pass it out to a guy who can score 25 and 5 in any game, average 25, 5 and 5 for his career, over 20 years. And Kobe, Kobe did get a lot of shots up, but he did get it, a lot of free throw line. He made plays for his teammates. He defended, and it helps the element. You have the inside out threat that, a lot of teams can only hope for, just that balance of two superstars, super efficient, super deadly, and could go off. Like, we talk about the 81 game, but Shaq had his own high scoring games. Shout out to the Clippers. But yeah, man, just that immovable force inside, and that bowling ball of will and on the perimeter. It was just a deadly combo.
And so you mentioned earlier Kobe's influence, and what I was alluding to earlier with his high school career was him coming out and during those times in the early 2000s really making a name for himself. That's what put in people's minds to where, like, all right, you know what? Perimeter players can come out of high school and succeed. And so Darius Miles gets drafted, and he starts off good, but he gets injured and stuff. But in 03, LeBron James gets drafted. And I feel like, even though LeBron was LeBron, and we did the episode on him already, but without Kobe Bryant, there's still probably questions about, can a perimeter player come out of high school and make a difference?
Yeah.
And then the next season, it went way overboard, and like J.R. Smith, Josh Smith, and all due respect to them, but it just went way too far. But but Kobe Bryant, that's where his influence really began. Coming out of high school as this high school phenom, and people being in denial about it at first. You know what I mean? Like, because not only was he not playing, but he had this confidence of somebody who could just take over the league at some point, and he hadn't done it. Like, averaging 7 points in 1996, 97, and saying you could be better than Jordan, who was in the middle of a three-peat, people are going to have a real issue with that.
Yeah.
But he really, I'm not going to say, I don't do rankings, and I'm not going to say a lot of people better than Jordan anyway, but he put himself in the conversation after a while.
Yeah, you mentioned Kevin Garnett earlier, but I pulled it up here. So Daryl Dawkins was the first one out of high school, and then it took a while. And Bill Willoughby that same year, and then it took a while. Then it was Kevin Garnett in '95, and then it was a consistent stretch from Kevin Garnett. The next year is Kobe and Jermaine O'Neal. Tracy McGrady,
the next year for sure.
Yeah, Tracy the next year, and then the next year, the following year after Tracy was Al Harrington in the first round, Rashard Lewis in the second, and Corleone Young. So that's where the stretch started dying down. After Rashard Lewis, you got Jonathan Bender, a first round bust here. Darius Miles in 2000, Deshaun Stevenson, the Kwame Brown, Tyson Chandler, like a lot of guys that were flops. Tyson Chandler had a nice career, but Amari Stoudemire was the next guy. LeBron, Dwight, and that's when the rules stopped, because that 2004, I really feel like 2004 did a number on them. We got
2005, like they had that was rough. I'm not gonna say guys' names, but that was rough.
They had 8 guys out of high school in the top 19 picks in 2004.
Just chasing that LeBron,
chasing the lottery ticket.
And it just didn't work out. But Kobe came out of high school, man, and kind of took over the league after a while. And so I just feel like that influence has to be kind of talked about, because without him, maybe LeBron goes to college. Maybe it changed the trajectory of the league. It ended up being in a bad way, but you end up not getting some of these legends. T-Mac spoke to Kobe specifically before he came out, because they were friends, to kind of get guidance from him coming out of high school. And so I feel like we understand Kobe's influence now with the Mamba mentality stuff and all that, but Kobe's influence started in 1996. Fast forward again. Him and Shaq are just not getting along. And I feel like in 2004, when the Pistons beat them, and credit to the Pistons because they just took them both out of the game for the most part, the Lakers had to make a decision. And Shaq was up there in age. And us as Heat fans, thank you very much. But they had to make a decision. And so they decided to trade Shaq to Miami for Lamar Odom, Caron Butler, Brian Grant, couple other pieces I don't necessarily remember. And the Lakers are really struggling, but Kobe Bryant is really not.
Yeah.
and we talk about that era where I think it was pretty unquestionable Kobe was the best player in the league.
It's debatable for me. I got Timmy ahead of him. Timmy. I don't think, like, some people say like LeBron came in LeBron was good right away, but he wasn't top 10 player in the league good. Like he has numbers and stuff. Yeah. And Dwayne was in the conversation too, but I definitely think there's a strong argument for Timmy.
Yeah. But I think I feel like if those Laker teams won more, it would be less of a debate.
Yeah.
But Kobe had no real help, but he was out there, like we mentioned earlier, he had that one stretch where he had like 5 40-point games in a row. The 81, obviously, the 62. Probably should have won MVP in 06. I'm never going to be mad at Steve Nash winning one, but I think that was the year where it was like kind of, all right, come on now. Like, we see what's happening in LA.
I think if they give Kobe the one in 06, Dwayne or CP gets there in 08.
Yeah, it's a lot of guys
Oh,
deserved
09, my bad.
MVPs. Yeah, we're not gonna get too far into that, but there was a lot of guys who deserved MVPs some years who didn't get it. I know it was Chris Paul in 08 because it was Dwayne in 09.
No, but Chris Paul also had that 09 year. Chris Paul finished like third in MVP voting that year because it was a Kobe won. LeBron was in second. Yeah. I'm just pulling it up here. No, LeBron won.
Yeah.
Because 07, 08 was the year he had the worst pick in the league.
Oh yeah. That was
then it was the redeem team. Yeah. So Dwayne was third that year. I think you might be right actually that 08 was Chris Paul.
Yeah, I remember it being 08.
Yeah, Kobe won in 08. Chris Paul was second in 08. That's right. I got it mixed up. Chris Paul might get his in 08. If Kobe wins it in 06, which there's a strong conversation for that.
Yeah, but Kobe he averaged 27.6 points per game, 35.4 points per game, 31.6 points per game, 28.3 points per game. And
crazy.
Then I believe they got Powell. Yeah, then they got Powell. And it kind of went down to 26.8, which is still really impressive. But it's just like he had no help out there, man.
Yeah, no, and it wasn't just Powell. It was, we talk about high school picks. One of the last ones was Andrew Bynum.
Yeah,
and he showed a lot of potential early flashes of just a supreme talent. And one of the guys they got from the Laker trade, from the Shaq trade, was Lamar Odom, who had one of the best six men of all time. Chemistry with Powell and Andrew Bynum, so they had flexibility to mix and match with those guys. The 2-man passing attack between Lamar Odom and Powell was beautiful. When you have your 4 or 5 guys that can run the floor in transition and make plays off the pass, they're just fucking head of steam. You got a Hall of Fame big man and one of the most. I still feel like Lamar Odom was underrated. Like he
100%
and under, like, I don't want to say underutilized, but like I feel like he could have became more. I feel like in this era he could have became more.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that another day. But just that fit of Lamar and Powell together really brought the talent that Kobe was desperately asking for.
Yeah, and that's why I don't really judge players based on like the whole idea of, well, this player can't be the best player on a championship team or whatever it is. It's a team sport. And so even with Kobe going off, like I mentioned, one of those years he averaged 35.4 points per game. And we also know what he was doing on the defensive end. But it's a team sport. And so without a Pau Gasol to be able to really share the ball with, there's not much you can really do.
Yeah.
And so they ended up winning 2 more championships in 2009 and 2010. They beat the Orlando Magic and they beat the Boston Celtics, who at the time were, I guess you could call a power, quote unquote. Well, super team for that era.
Yeah. And that one was one of the more impressive teams too, because that Boston team was very resilient. If we remember, they didn't have a great regular season. They kind of like focused on getting healthy because that was their like real last stand. That was the last time they made it to the finals as a core. And they pushed on and they pushed them. That was the Game 7 Ron Artest dagger. That Kobe had the 6 for 24, I believe it was, with like 16 rebounds game. And that team and that era, it was Trevor Ariza doesn't get mentioned enough about how great his defense was. They talk about his I've never heard a fan base talk so much about a guy pressuring the inbounder, because Trevor was so good at that shit. And then it comes to fruition in the playoffs and in the finals where he gets a couple steals and big plays. Derek Fisher, big part of that team, of course. But Luke Walton, Jordan Farmar, like guys that you forget about, but we're just great role players for Kobe and Phil.
Yeah, and so after that, they end up They traded Lamar Odom to Dallas, which I still don't know why they would do that. And the team kind of goes young, but they pay Kobe and they bring Kobe back because obviously you have to do that. A lot of people at the time disagreed with it. I'm not going to get into that conversation. But I think after everything Kobe's done for the team, you just go ahead and you ride it out and see what happens. And I don't want to laugh at this now, but very funny era of basketball. Just watching him be fed up with the D'Angelo Russells and people who actually became good NBA players.
Yeah.
When you think about it. D'Angelo Russell's struggling now, but Julius Randles and the Jordan Clarksons and all those guys, he had to deal with Kobe and Nick Young on the same team is just funny as hell to think about. And then he starts getting injured, and you never want to see that. But he ends up coming back his second to last season. Has a pretty decent season. I think he averaged like 23 or something like that, 22, 23 points per game. And then he ends up,
Yeah, I'm sorry. He gets injured in 13-14, I believe that was the year. He played 6 games that year. And then he comes back, only gets to play 32 games, but 22 points a game.
Yeah. Which is solid for where because he tore his Achilles twice.
Yeah.
And so I respect that. But man, it was kind of rough to watch. Now
it was.
Here's what I'll ask about now, right? Because this is my biggest regret as a basketball fan, right? Kobe's last game, he started off terribly, right? And something else was on TV. It was either another team playing or something. I was like, you know what, man? I get the sentimental stuff, but I'm not sitting through this. And and I changed the channel. And I woke up the next morning and saw he had 60 in his last game. And I still regret that to this day, man, because it's like whatever I watched wasn't even that entertaining because I don't remember what it was.
I remember what it was because I think it was a big like Warriors game or something.
They were going for the 73. They were going for the 73 point. Yeah.
So.
And I went and watched that.
Yeah. And I I remember oh man, I don't remember who Golden State was playing, but I was like, I can keep tabs on it. If it gets close, I'm gonna watch. I'll tune in. But I'm gonna watch Kobe's last game. Like this is way cooler.
Mm-hmm. So you actually saw it?
Yeah, I got to watch it. I was and be on Twitter for it. That was one of the funnest experiences on Twitter.
Man, so walk me through that because I obviously missed it. I went to sleep after the Warriors game and everything.
It was just a flurry. Like we talked about the 81 point game where Kobe shot 46 shots. He shot 50 shots again this last game. And he shot 21 threes, 12 free throws. And the team needed it. The Lakers won by 5. And the Jazz were a pretty solid team. This was what I believe one of Gordon Hayward's first teams. Like they still hadn't had Rudy Gobert on that team.
Right.
But they had a solid little like young nucleus that were talented. But you could tell everybody's just passing the ball to Kobe, pass the ball to Kobe, let him take shots. He was just giving every move in the book, showing all his footwork, the the gall of some of his shots was just like, yo, there's nobody like Kobe, and he's just something so memorable that even I, who wasn't a big Kobe fan growing up or anything like that, and I was a bit of a hater, I'll admit it, but
hey, it was.
I appreciated that. I appreciated the theater of that last game, just going out fully. Like I didn't like Kobe as a player, but I always respected him. Mm-hmm. And I always respected how strong his beliefs were and how strong his beliefs were in his way and his system. And you can't argue with the results. 5 championships, the MVP, a Hall of Fame career, one of the best to ever do it. Top 2 shooting guard of all time. Like the accolades speak for themselves. The All-Star games, the first team All NBA, the All Defense, everything. But the last game, man, it was just like full appreciation. Just let him be Kobe. throughout his career, and especially in that last game, stamp it out. And they needed it. They needed the points. He was hitting clutch bucket after bucket. They're going to him, and there was a stretch where he just hit like 3 or 4 in a row, and you're just like, hell yeah! Everybody's laughing, everybody's smiling. Even some you caught a glimpse of the Jazz bench, and they're all enjoying it too, and they're trying to win this game. You clearly see they're trying to win this game too, but that was just fucking awesome experience to watch.
So Kobe overall is a player. I watch a lot of old games. If you haven't picked up on it from previous episodes, I watch a lot of old basketball, probably as much as I watch current basketball, to be honest with you. And Kobe is one of those players where, and I mentioned not really fully appreciating him when he played. I don't even mean that as in like not understanding how good he was. I feel like anytime you root against somebody, it's because you know how good they are. But even now, just looking back at those games with nothing in mind, no agendas, no opinions, just watching, the goal of the shots he was taking that last game makes total sense because he made impossible shots look easy just throughout his career, especially after Shaq left. Being able to, like, first of all, his footwork.
Impeccable.
He did moves that players today don't even try to emulate.
No. To
pump fake and then spin the other way and shoot it off the glass off one leg is crazy. And he had, I remember because I played back then, he had like tutorials like through Nike. Like he had them, I think Manu Ginobili had one with the Euro step. And Kobe would teach his footwork, and I was like, you know what? I'm not making the NBA because I can't. Like
I'm not doing this.
He was a special player. Like, I'll urge anybody. Like the NBA app has old games. Even if you are a Kobe fan or if you weren't a Kobe fan, just look back and watch some classic Kobe games. He was doing some impossible stuff out there, man.
Yeah,
contested by 2 people and he used to speak on, and me being such a Dwayne Wade fan back then, he used to talk about like shooting over double team so casually, and I would be like, you're not supposed to do that. But then you watch him do it, and it's just like, well, and the person he's doubling, the person they're doubling off of couldn't really score anyway. So it's like, why not?
Yeah, he used to say, I forgot which player specifically he said it about.
It was probably Smush Parker.
It was probably Smush. But he was saying, am I going to pass the ball to Smush Parker? That's fucking Smush Parker. Like, who do I trust more to make the shot, Kobe or Smush? I'm going to trust Kobe.
And it's just, man, I'm telling you, if you got the NBA app, I have League Pass. I don't know if you need it or not. I stay with League Pass all day, but
I have League Pass.
Yeah, well, it's something, man. Watch some Kobe games. Watch the 62 against the Mavs. Watch the 8. Well, everybody's seen the 81 game 100 times. At least I have. But you can even watch games where I watched a game recently, and I wasn't even watching it for Kobe. I was watching it for Grant Hill because Grant Hill had a crazy triple-double, but it was against the Lakers, and it was Kobe's first year, I want to say. Yeah, it was Kobe's first year. No. Yeah, it was Kobe's first year. And he came off the bench, and he showed flashes. He always showed the flashes his rookie year, which somebody also found out they were trying him out at point guard at some point, which I don't know how that was going to work. But he'd come off the bench, and it felt like us as Heat fans watching Bam his rookie year just put together 5-6 incredible plays in a row and never touch the floor again.
Yeah. Oh, frustrating.
That was the experience of Kobe's rookie year, because I've seen a few games from that year. He'll come in, like this game particularly, he had 20-something, and the announcer said something that was so – I think that was his second 20-plus point game of his career. And the announcer at the time was like – and remember, this is a skinny high school kid. He's a star, but people have a lot of questions about him.
Yeah.
The announcer was like, this isn't the last time you're going to see 20 points from Kobe Bryant. He's going to get to a point where he can score 30, he can score 40. You may even see 50 or 60 from him. This is Kobe's second 20-point game. And an announcer, it may have been Chick Hearn, it may have been the person who was next to him, but And Kobe really did show that kind of potential his rookie year. So to be able to actually, we talk about and we love LeBron for having the hype and then living up to it. But I feel like Kobe played so long, and a lot of us became basketball fans while he was already at the top.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really talk about his whole journey. And so I really want to do this episode to do that, because to go from this high school kid who's real skinny and he's like he was a 13th pick, and he was probably, I don't know, Allen Iverson was clearly the best player in that draft at the time, but Kobe was probably clearly second best. But he falls to 13 because of his age, his size, and him being quote unquote selfish as a player, which ended up being just misunderstood. He just wanted to win. He was always the best on his team, so why not? But to see that full journey, I feel like it has to be spoken about more. Because like I said, I started watching basketball. Kobe was already 3 championships in.
Yeah, same.
And so I'm like, all right, well, Kobe's just Kobe. This is part of basketball. This is part of life. And I had to go back and realize how far he came. And it's just, to me, it's just such an incredible story.
Yeah, he's like we talked earlier about how influential he is. Like I feel like a lot of the younger generation, like you talk about all the guys, like how many guys, when we talk, I don't want to really talk too much about his passing, but like when he passed, like how many guys immediately changed their numbers, their jersey numbers, or were already planning on rocking 8 and switch it to 28 or something like that, for his daughter as well. And guys grew up idolizing him. It was him. It was, obviously MJ, but I feel like MJ's further away because MJ.
Yeah, he played in the 80s and 90s. It's kinda,
But like for this generation, it was a lot of Kobe. It was a lot of AI. Like it was Dwayne. Like those were the 3 guys that people were looking up to. And obviously, I would say AI and Kobe had more influence on a lot of players. But you see like guys rocking his numbers, trying to do his moves, asking him for guidance and influence, and just looking into him as a mentor. And I feel like the thing we don't appreciate enough on, like, Kobe was a hard ass and he was a tough teammate and stuff, but he kind of grew out of that too. He matured, and like it was that era specifically between titles. Between contending teams, where he was really a pain in the ass for Smush and a lot of his teammates. But he was, it was mostly just because he wanted more. He wanted more, and he was in that growth stage of his career of like evolving as a man, not just as a player. And he, you can tell by the championships. You can tell by the Redeem team, the one of the which we need to talk about the Redeem team sometime. But if you watch the documentary, he's and it's not just because he passed. It's because of how much he actually meant to that team and those players that were his peers, but they also very clearly idolized and respected this man and his talent, his work ethic. The work ethic is, I think, without a doubt, the things the highest influence of Kobe's career. Like people talk about working hard, and then they talk about how hard Kobe worked, and how he's in the gym at 3 a.m. and busting ass and all this stuff, and like that's the kind of stuff people don't appreciate enough about. But that's where it separates the line between great and greatness.
And it seems like every player has that story of they tried to get to the gym early and Kobe was already in there in a full sweat doing the same move over and over again. But that speaks to, like I said, just the story. And people say he was also like that in high school. So I'm not going to like give the NBA credit for that.
Right.
But like to go from 7 points a game, hardly playing, so as soon as you get the opportunity, averaging 20, and then ending up being a guy who averages 35 but not winning. You have 3 titles already, and then took like from 7 points a game as a 17-year-old to 3 championships. And people make the argument greatest player ever. We don't get into the GOAT debate on here, but to be in that conversation, like he said he would be when he was 17 years old.
Yeah.
You like, whether you were a Kobe fan or not, like neither one of us really were at the time. I became a Kobe fan after he retired, or really realized how much of a Kobe fan I was after he retired. But you have to respect that kind of journey, man.
For sure. I remember one of my favorite tweets. I hate that I couldn't find it. I was just searching for it. One of my favorite tweets said, like, Kobe is such a like insane like work ethic, like psychological person that I'm so glad he found basketball. If he was an assassin, they would never find him. And that's just the embodiment of who he was as a player, his work ethic, his IQ, his journey. And like, I appreciated Kobe in retirement so much more because of how he was like looking to teach and to be around his kids, to be a father, to be a role model, to influence the game of the WNBA as well. And like, you know, you talk about all the players that look up to him and idolize him and just really appreciated what he was bringing them and all the kind of relationships they had that, you know, it's something that we have to appreciate. It's part of the story. It's part of his story. It's part of his legacy. And, you know, one of the greatest to ever do it. One of the greatest that will ever be was Kobe Bryant.
And Kobe in retirement is where he really earned my respect because of that.
Yeah.
Because throughout his career, he was known as the antisocial. He didn't want to talk to even his teammates, really. And so he came off a certain way. He was talked about a certain way. People like to forget that. He was talked about a certain way. But he retires and
by us.
But he retires and every great player in the league has his number. And they can reach out to him, they can speak to him, and you see him training his daughter. And we're not going to get into his death. This is a celebration of Kobe. I don't want to bring the mood down with that, but seeing the way he was with his daughter and how good his daughter was from his teaching, you know what I mean? Like, and seeing him not only like that with his daughter, but with the whole team. And there's the funny Instagram post he had to where there was a girls team who blew his team out, who beat his team the year before. And it's his team in front of the scoreboard the next year after smacking that team. Like he still got that mentality, but it was a different way now. It was just, he was a lot more, I don't want to say unselfish because he was never selfish. He just wanted to win, but he channeled it in a different way.
Yeah. He always was a smart player.
Yeah.
And stuff. And he just felt like, hey, the odds of me doing it are better than the odds of this guy doing it.
Yeah.
Which I can kind of understand in a fucked up kind of way. But you know, like we talked about Dwayne, like how we saw the game differently, but like there's no right or wrong. There are wrong ways to play basketball, but that I think we thought of that at the time as a wrong way. But Kobe just it was really truly a different way. And we had to kind of learn that kind of stuff, and you appreciated it more when as he got older and as he got better in different aspects of the game. But yeah, man, I think the biggest aspect was his influence after the game. You know, on the women players and stuff like that. That was awesome. The young girls, that post you were talking about. Man, we got robbed of so much. It still warms my heart to see the post of like Powell with his family recently, like celebrating him and their bond as you know, they're still family and stuff like that. That's awesome, because I honestly didn't know how much Kobe liked Powell at first. Especially after 2011 and they got swept. But you know, it's great that you know, his maturity and growth as a man and as a player led to a lot of great bonds that a lot of people will never forget.
Yeah, and to the PowerPoint, and I feel like, and I obviously, look, I didn't know Kobe, but
of course,
I feel like if you could win with Kobe, he'll always like you in some sense. Like even with Shaq, like they had their beefs or whatever it was, but towards the end there, you saw them really start to get along again. And with Powell, it's kind of like, even when they won the championships with Powell, there's this, I don't know if it's famous or if I've just watched it a billion times because I'm obsessed with basketball like that, but Kobe was most excited about being able to run a pick and roll with Powell and Powell knowing exactly where to be. And I feel like that's where their relationship really was sealed, winning those championships and Kobe being able to rely on Powell. Mm-hmm. People forget how good Powell was.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that's where their relationship really grew. And obviously to see it now with like their families are friends and all that stuff. But that all goes back to the point of Kobe just really wanting to win and not really caring about what you may think of him. Because even the championships with Shaq, he jumped right into Shaq's arms when they won. Despite them fighting in practice and all that, he jumped right into Shaq's arms. Same thing with Powell. It's like if Kobe was about winning, and if you cared about anything else, he just wasn't fucking with you.
Yeah.
And that's why he had the relationships he had with some of his teammates. It's very similar to Jordan in The Last Dance. Like if you're not working as hard as I am, then I like you said earlier, like why am I passing you the ball if I don't see you in the gym?
Yeah. You're not working. Like to quote the great Patrick Ewing, do you work on that shot? Yeah, man. And I kind of appreciate it more too as like Heat fans. We talk about Heat culture and all that. And like Kobe is really one of the biggest embodiments of Heat culture there ever was. And he just a legend in and of himself. Number 8, number 24. The All-Star Game MVP trophy named after him. 4-time All-Star MVP. Like, let's get into the accolades, bro.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Plenty. 5-time champ, 2-time Final MVP, 08 MVP, 18-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA first team, 2 second, 2 third, 9 times first team All-Defense, 3 second team, 2-time scoring champ, got a slam dunk champion, member of the 75th anniversary team. Like just one of the greatest to ever do it. Legend on and off the court. Just incredible person. And I think that basketball, he's one of those players. Like there's a lot of Hall of Famers, and that's not a slight at the Basketball Hall of Fame, but there's a lot of Hall of Famers. But there's only so many Hall of Famers that you cannot tell the story of basketball without.
Right.
And Kobe Bryant is absolutely one of those guys.
Right. And so whether it was, like we mentioned his influence earlier, whether it was the coming out of high school as a guard, whether it was the flashiness early on in his career, and that was taken in a negative way early on, but the flashiness, the footwork as a guard, the versatility as a player, the competing hard on both ends of the floor. His defense doesn't get talked about enough. I understand like there's a couple all defensive teams he may have gotten because of his name at the later stages.
Yeah.
But when he was young and before those injuries, he was an absolute dog on defense.
He was.
And to also expend that much energy on both ends of the floor. Paul Pierce told the story recently, actually, because he's from like the LA. He's not from LA, but he's from around the area. He went to a Laker game as a kid, and his favorite player was T-Mac. And he noticed Kobe was guarding T-Mac, but T-Mac wasn't guarding Kobe. Mm-hmm. And so that made Paul George want to really lock in on being a two-way player. And
you said Paul Pierce before.
I don't know why I said Paul Pierce did some more shit today. But I'm going to say Paul. That went a long way because they're both from the LA area. But
yeah,
that's Paul George.
That's why I went with it. I was like, I was like, Paul Pierce is like the same age as T-Mac. He's a little older, but like same draft class, I think.
So Paul George, I mean,
yeah,
going to that game inspired Paul George to be a two-way player. And there's a lot of stories like that, man. You see the NBA now. So many players are from LA.
Yeah,
growing up watching Kobe.
You look at Russ, you look at Paul George,
Kawhi, and they all
James
play
Harden.
hard.
They all idolize him for different aspects, different reasons. I feel like Kawhi is undersold as one of the like most like closest comps to Kobe because Kawhi's footwork is fucking nasty.
Yeah,
how he plays
and the
defense.
posting up.
His post up game, his fadeaways, his touch. Like you could see a lot of the influence there.
Yeah, man. So
Jaime Jaquez.
Yeah, but true though.
He really number 24 UCLA. I wonder what team and who he rooted for growing up.
And so to be inspirational to people from 1996 to now, it's 2024, and he's not here anymore. And there's still players coming out like, look, no, I idolize Kobe. I model my game after Kobe. Even players who don't play like him, like Bam Adebayos of the world, grew up idolizing Kobe.
Yeah,
it's like another two-way player. Like, we had to do this episode, man. We had to. And the last thing I'll say, because for anybody who doesn't know, I don't want to say made a name for myself because it's not a large name, but I started to become sort of quote unquote known as a quote unquote analyst through covering the Miami Heat with Miami Heat Beat. And people kind of know that my identity is I don't attack players. I don't like jump to conclusions. I don't really go with a lot of narratives. But the reason for that is Kobe Bryant. Once, because I used to do that with Kobe when he played. And then once he retired, I was like, you know what? All that shit was stupid. What am I talking about? Like, what do I mean Kobe needs to pass more? Look who's on his team. What are you doing? Like, and so even with me, I knew I wasn't going to the NBA by like 2007. And it was what it was. I didn't have a work ethic. I didn't have a Mamba mentality. But even with him inspiring people who don't play in the league, for me now, I'll stay up editing this show a lot of times until 3:30, 4 a.m. Have to wake up at 6. The person that comes to mind, though, Kobe Bryant. Like, the hours don't matter. Just get the work in if you're trying to get where you need to go. Every morning I wake up, and I don't even follow a lot of basketball pages on Instagram because I feel like it's a whole lot of stuff. I follow like motivational stuff because I'm not a morning person. I need to get out of bed. And it's just a lot of Kobe quotes about hard work and dedication and sticking to, like, it's a lot of Kobe. And so I think even just beyond basketball, because his influence is a lot bigger than basketball. There's people in all kinds of fields, I just mentioned myself, who take the Mamba mentality and apply it to real life. Like, there's no time to be lazy. There's no time to just sit around. You got to really work for what you get. And if you are a basketball fan like we are, we understand that because Kobe wasn't quick. He wasn't fast. He had like a 36-inch vertical. He did all the flashy dunks early on. That's cool, but he wasn't jumping out the gym like Michael Jordan was, or like the Vince Carter's or whatever it was. He really had to hone in on his craft and his skill set. And like we mentioned, the footwork and the fadeaways, and he wasn't necessarily the strongest three-point shooter, quote unquote. That just wasn't really the era anyway.
Yeah.
But he really had to hone in on his craft. And so to see the hard work pay off, because I keep going back to who he was at 17, having to have his parents co-sign on his NBA contract, and just being this big talent, but raw talent, to becoming, people make the argument, the greatest player of all time. We have no choice but to salute that, man.
Mm-hmm. No, and you mentioned just the work ethic again. And like, there's no better saying than, are you a different animal and the same beast? And like, that really puts it into perspective. The Black Mamba.
Yeah.
No, just a hilarious guy. Like, and when he started like making fun of himself, like in that Nike commercial with Kanye, redacted,
Mm-hmm.
he kind of embraced that role and just became more likable to me. Like, it was just a lot easier to appreciate who he was when he kind of can joke on himself and stuff. And like, one of the all-time greatest commercial series of all time was the Nike, LeBron, and Kobe
puppets. Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, they need to bring that back. I wish they could have brought that back. Just hilarious series. Just meant stuff like that just made him more likable. Nike did a great job with him, and it was easy to see like his personality. There was more to him than like what you heard at the time. Like all the Shaq and Smush Parker beef and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And so, like I was saying before, so to influence people from 1996 to today in 2024,
and
takes a special talent and a special person, man. Thanks for tuning in to episode 13 of Playoff File. I'm Kenny Spence. My Twitter is Kenny Spence NBA. Frank, you can give him yours real quick.
FRANKYG_ on Twitter.
If you like the music, that's by my brother Devin Spence. That's Black Glow Music on Instagram and TikTok. Follow us on all platforms, especially Instagram and TikTok, because we do the short form content, and that's a lot of hard work for me to do, to be completely honest. But it's just makes things real easy for the viewer. Tune into that, follow us, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube also, and we'll see y'all next time.